All right, we are on air. Happy New Year, everybody. It is
Woo!
January 2018, our second backdrop meeting of 2018, first for some of you, which is great. This is a meeting to check in on active development tasks, so what we're working on for backdrop right now. Since our last meeting, we have a new community member, new contributor. Jerry Hudgens ported token filter, and I'm currently working with them in the issue queue to get the Git history preserved from Drupal 7, but I'm not expecting that to take very long, and then we'll get a new project in the contrib repo. So thanks, Jerry, for doing all the work on token filter. And welcome to Backdrop. I removed the issues from the agenda about backdropcms.org in the forum site because we talked about those a lot last week. We also talked about them earlier today in the design meeting. So if you're interested in hearing about the few minor design issues that we're working on, you can definitely watch the recap of that meeting. Basically, the only news is that we have the new drop-down menu on both sites. We're working on cleaning up active state, and if you have any feedback on design issues, let us know. We're always happy to take in feedback and improve, but nothing pressing on either of those topics. So, Nate, I'd like to turn it over to you to talk about Backdrop CMS release stuff.
Okay. All right. So, man, lots of things have happened. January 1st was our feature freeze for Backdrop 1.9. And so the functionality that we have in the 1.x branch is basically going to be what 1.9 is, plus or minus some additional bug fixes if we can still complete those things before January 15th. On January 1st, we haven't cut a preview release yet, but we did cut the 1.8.1 release. Yay! So finally, now that we're only 10 days up from the 1.9 release, we finally released a bug fix release for 1.8. The good news is that really the kind of good news is that it really contains a really pretty small number of fixes. There's about a dozen small items that were fixed in 1.8.1. And so that is out there. There is still a couple of minor items that need to be done to fully complete that task of making that release. Issue 2931 is our tracking for making sure that all of the steps are completed for finishing the release. And the items that are missing include things like updating the Docker images, pushing out to the Pantheon repository, updating Wikipedia, and also tweeting. We didn't actually tell anybody that 1.8.1 is out there, at least via tweets. But of course, it's on backdropcms.org. An update module will tell everybody that there's a new version available. So that's great that got put out there, and it's available for download now. 1.8.2, we will still release a 1.8.2, including any bug fixes that happen between now and January 15th. And 1.8.2 will come out at the same time as Backdrop 1.9.0. Items that I'd like to see in 1.8.2 include these crossports. These crossports from Drupal have just been dragging along for a long time. Jen, did you say there had been some updates? I hadn't checked on these this week. Sorry, now you have to find your mute button.
Oh, I was updating the agenda. Yeah, I was just adding information. I went through and updated all of the pull requests that had feedback on them. I think one of them has failing tests, but all the other ones are good to go.
Oh, wow. That is excellent. Yeah, sure enough, this was a couple days ago. Okay, that's fantastic. So those issues are issue numbers 2013, 2774, 2775, 2776. So that's great. Okay, looks like that's back on my plate to get those things reviewed. Of course, anybody wanting to do those testings or code reviews, marking things RTBC is highly appreciated. I've been keeping on top of that and keeping the RTBC queue empty for the past couple of weeks. Mostly by committing things, but also, unfortunately, by knocking them back down to needs work. Yeah, cross reviews or peer reviews are highly appreciated, but I'll get to those in the next couple of days. Okay, 1.9. 1.9 is coming out in 11 days, January 15th, 2018. So let's see, that is, looks like that's a Monday, which is a great day for making releases. So there's no holidays, no special occasions around January 15th. So I believe that there won't be any unexpected changes in schedule. What's going to be in 1.10? Well, it looks like the primary thing that we did finally accomplish is the ability to edit files, manage files. And so you can go to the manage files listing page, which has already been there. And in addition to the delete functionality, which had already existed, we now have a manage link on individual files, allowing you to replace that file or modify its properties. The obvious follow-up to that of making it so that you could upload a file independently of other content, which is issue 2633. We didn't get done, so that's fine. That just gets bumped to the next release. So that looks like editing an existing file. That's not like the biggest feature in the world, but that's probably going to be the item that is kind of like featured as far as the 1.9 functionality goes. I think there's a couple other minor items. I think there's a couple API additions that have been added through the 1.9 release. But functionality-wise, that's probably what users are going to see that's the big difference. So that's it. 1.9. We still have time to do user experience improvements and bug fixes before 1.9 comes out. So keep an eye on those things that are in the queue being tagged as 1.9. We'll probably start going through the 1.9 features and bumping all of those to 1.10 here in the next couple of days. So yeah, that's it for the 1.9 update. 1.10. 1.10. Yes, what a funny number, 1.10. We've had some discussions back and forth about rolling from 1.9 to 2.0, but there's some repercussions that would come with that change. Given if we don't reach a decision about going to 2.0, which at this point we wouldn't do any like API breaks, but calling it 2.0 and not having it break APIs is possibly an option. But if we do nothing and just continue our current patterns, 1.10 will be the next release, just because it requires no work on our parts to just move to the next number. So barring any changes, that's probably what's going to end up happening. So what's going to be in 1.10? So the most obvious candidates include these two items that were marked as high priority for 1.9 that didn't get completed: uploading a file manually and making files fieldable, issues 2633 and 2632. Both of those have pull requests. They're not too far off from being complete, and are good candidates for being included in 1.10. Other items in 1.10, there's been a good amount of progress made during the 1.9 cycle that we mention every now and then, but had never really been in our like high priority list regarding translation capabilities. And there's a lot of work happening in this related to the Backdrop for Good project, which the
Can anyone else hear Nate? It looks like everybody. You there, Mike?
Yeah. Do you hear Nate? I don't hear Nate.
I hear you, but I don't hear Nate.
Ooh, maybe he's not here. Maybe now's our opportunity to steal the show from him.
Nate, come back.
I even don't hear him. Do you hear me?
I can see.
I can hear you. Hi, Olaf.
Linux. I blame Linux. Hey, Nate. Are you back? Are you gone? He's gone. He's back.
Hey, sorry, I have no idea what happened there. Okay.
Linux.
Yeah, I hate to say that might be the problem. Okay, I was last talking about Backdrop for Good, I think. Did you guys get to that part?
Yeah.
Yes, we heard that.
Okay. Yeah, and so there's been a lot of items that have been coming out of that project because they're trying to internationalize their website, and they've run into some issues with that. So what's come out of that has been some nice work. Config translation issue 704 has seen some progress. Jeff Serendipity has gone through and stubbed out kind of some proof of concept, and there's some other suggestions in that comment thread about how we can implement config translation. So the ball is rolling on that issue, which is great. And issue 225 saw some exciting movement this week as well. That there was a pull request made a long time ago, all the way back in 2014. Looks like. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. We're getting to that point. By Kribu, not sure how else to pronounce that, but Kribu filed its great pull request that basically ported i18n's menu translation, but it got hung up mostly because of me requesting that we address some UX problems because it's super confusing to me, at least, and apparently to others. Regarding multiple ways to translate menus. And so I tried to take this like in a new direction, but it actually ended up being just a partial port where we took one method of translation out of the original pull request and refocused the code to only deal with that one particular approach. And it ends up with a really pretty good solution. So Olaf did some code review on that, or functionality review on that, and that was awesome. Thank you, Olaf. And if anybody else would like to try it out, there is the live sandbox that's on the pull request on issue 225. It'd be great to get some more feedback, both code feedback and UX feedback on how well that menu translation capability works. Let's see. And lastly, we've got some other things that have been coming up around block translation that we'll be doing after this meeting. But that's like, just raising that as like, that might be something that gets looked at, but we're still in the idea phase there. So, okay. Well, that's all that I want to mention for 1.10. The real items for these next couple of weeks, of course, will be getting 1.9 polished and out the door. But it's never too soon to start thinking about the next release. So Yeah, I'm excited to see where 1.10 takes us and get started on that release once 1.9 is out there. That's all I've got for the product update. Do you guys have any other questions or discussion that we should talk about on air?
I have a question. I just haven't been keeping track, and I don't know if there's been anything. Have we had any issues with PHP 7.2?
I saw, I know where you're heading with this. I haven't tried it yet. Have you had any experience yet, Mike?
Not with Backdrop yet. I have experience fixing some PHP errors on a Drupal 7 site, and then I managed to lost my entire development environment for doing Drupal 8 because Drupal 8 has some core functions that don't work in PHP 7.2 that they're not actually fixing until 8.5. So I just had to tell a client, sorry, I can't actually work on your Drupal 8 site right now because I'd have to recreate a whole new development environment. But yeah, so we should probably take a look and just make sure that nothing in Backdrop core will be messed up by PHP 7.2 because it's starting to be used.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It's less likely that it'll have a problem, but we won't know until we actually try it.
Yeah, Drupal 7 seems mostly fine. Like, there doesn't seem too many big core problems. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how Drupal 8 like introduced so many more PHP errors than Drupal 7 had, but that's, I guess, to be expected with the whole rewrite and object-oriented stuff.
Yeah, it's using a lot more of PHP than Drupal 7 did. So
yeah.
Well, it's using a lot more cutting edge, and that's where things are changing. Like what happened here is that I hope I can explain this accurately, is that inherited classes, the signatures for methods has to match identically. You can't change the signature between like a child, like an inheriting class that has a method, and its parent that has a method. It has to be exactly the same signature. And Drupal 8 introduced some code where the signature changes in between different child classes that inherit from a parent class. And so
and that's mostly like leaving off like a variable that you don't need passed into your version of the function. So it's like it's really annoying because it's a bunch of little things that don't break anything that PHP has normally been very good at just sort of ignoring and, you know, sort of knowing your intentions, but it just became very intolerant of any PHP issues, which seems contrary to like the whole PHP project being for, you know, more intermediate programmers, but yeah.
Yeah, I have to say it's a surprising shift that previously in old PHP, they would have given you years for a change like this in between, like, okay, this now throws a warning, but you can suppress it in the PHP setting, or it's even turned off by default. The warning is turned off by default, but the next version they turn on the warning, and then the next version after that they make it an error, but you can still turn it off, and then finally the next version they even remove the ability to turn it off in PHP INI. But yeah, instead of doing that over like 3 or 4 releases, they just decided one's enough, which I'm a little bit surprised about.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Not the best.
Is there any chance they're gonna like relax that in like a new release of 17?
Maybe. I mean, if enough people complain, I guess. I mean, you know, I'd be satisfied with just having a flag where I can just like turn off those errors, at least for this current version, just because, like I said, like my server, I'm running Arch Linux, and it sort of has rolling releases, so like you don't control when updates happen. They just sort of happen when they come out, and so I can't really roll backwards. So it'd be great to be able to suppress those errors.
Yeah, I would love it if we could have a tester on that, confirm or deny.
Well, I'll work on a Backdrop site since I have the environment set up, and I will let you know if there's any things that I run across.
Yeah.
Like run the entire test suite, and would that be a good way to check?
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what else we
I
should
mean-
do is we could reach out to Gore and see if we can get PHP 7.2 on Zen CI and start making that our high end. So we test on the low end, which is still 5.3, and then on the high end, we should bump it to 7.2.
That would be ideal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Great topic, Mike. Thanks for bringing that up.
I would say my pleasure, but it's not really a pleasure. It's really my annoyance.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for our on-air discussion. We're going to chat afterwards a little bit about block translation. But yeah, let's keep this meeting short and sweet, focus mostly on 1.9. We've got 11 days before that happens, so let's make the best of those days and see what other minor things we can still make in the release to make it kick ass. So, all right, thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you guys again next week.
Bye.